good afternoon. This is Mother from Hearts&Minds Development Center, meeting you again in Being Whole, Being Me, Series 75. Well, it is my hope. Hi, Siobhan. Happy Friday. Sandeep, thank you for joining us too. Sandeep all the way from India. Siobhan, thank you for introducing Sandeep to our session. So for those who have joined us and who are at the background, I hope you have subscribed to our YouTube and Spotify because we are at Series 75. So who are we meeting today? I think you'd have seen some of our promotional work. We are meeting, how do I describe her, Pleasance Chong? I think every time I feel challenged in motherhood, I think of Pleasance. And every time I think of Pleasance, I am reminded what motherhood means, number one. Number two, I'm reminded of what empathy truly means, which is why I am so grateful that Pleasance has said yes to me the second time. So the first time I met her was when we were doing an International Women's Day. So I know Pleasance through her work, through her writing on Facebook, and she just inspires me, so much with her very honest, vulnerable self. And what I found from her writing was that she was always appealing to me to sort of get into her shoes very quickly. And which is why I thought when it comes to empathy, Pleasant would be fantastic to help us understand empathy and parenting in what I would say in challenging circumstances. As you would have seen in the introduction, Pleasant has got two beautiful children on the spectrum. And the way she writes about them, the things that I learned about parenting is just so useful for me. And without much ado, let's bring in Pleasance so that you're inspired by her contagious joy, love, affection, and empathy. Hi, Pleasance.
Hi, Mother. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for saying yes
Hi.
without thinking hard. I'm just going to say hello to two other people who've joined us. That's Jero Fernandez. I would say we have to give him our Kirtana always says, if we're going to give up an award for our best friend, it has to be Gerald. He's been with us almost every other episode after we met him. And Ivana Palan, thank you very much. Welcome to Being Whole, Being Me series. Okay, Pleasance, how are you?
Yes, I'm well. Thank you. I'm well. Thank you so much. Hope everyone
Thank
is
you.
doing well today too on a Friday.
Yeah, Fridays we usually do well because tomorrow is Saturday. Okay, and yeah, I haven't put up our photos from Antipoden yet, our hot photos with the guy. But let's get on. Yeah, there's so many stories just on one day, right? So Pleasance, thank you for saying yes.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about us for people who don't know you, who are meeting you for the first time. Tell us a little bit, about your personal self, your private life and your professional life, because from the video you seem to be doing so many things. I don't know how you do it, but just like help us understand what you do professionally and at a personal level. Yeah.
Well, where do I start? I'm Pleasance, and I am 45. I'm a wife to Jonathan and mother of two beautiful children. I have a daughter, Elise, who's 15, and my son, who's almost 11, Darius. I'm actually a classically trained musician since young, but I branched off after university and decided to just jump into the world of wine. So, yeah, I got into the wine industry in 2003, and along with my husband, both of us are in the wine industry currently. We run a wine education, a wine concierge service company. And on the flip side, I am also a baker. I bake because I love to bake, I love to cook, and I love to share um, a lot of myself. I put a lot of myself into what I create. So that's the other side of me. I live in KL. I've lived in KL, well, KL, PJ all my life, so I'm a actual local here. What else? I spent a good portion of my life overseas in the US, and that's where my daughter was born as well. But we are now back home in Malaysia, where home really is.
I was talking to myself, Pleasance, if you saw my mouth moving. So I said, I didn't realize Alice
Yes.
was born in the US. Okay, now I just want to check in with you, right? What so tell us a little bit about your transition because, you do, you're in the wine business with your husband, Jonathan, and I know you do baking and you bake lovely cakes, very unique, lovely cakes. I don't know how you get, how you get the energy to do that. Plus, you cook very well. I saw I've been watching your posts during the they look so nice. But tell us a little bit about your transition, right? Your transitions, uh, I don't know, mentally, emotionally, right? How did you transition in terms of, maybe we should talk about your challenges first, right? So, you had your first daughter first, and you knew she was on the spectrum, and then you had your second one, Darius. Now, what were the challenges that you experienced? Not challenges that you experienced. What are your challenges, right? Raising two children while running two other businesses, and being with your parents, and you seem to be available for everybody. On top of that, when I have coffee with you, you tell me, just know, just remember, I know I have a lot on my plate, but I can still listen to you. I don't know how you do that, right? So tell me, what are the challenges first?
Wow. Where do I start? um, I think earlier on, when my children were a lot younger, the biggest challenge was them being independent. They needed to be supervised all the time because of they have verbal challenges, especially my
Mm,
daughter.
mm,
They've progressed a lot right now. They are doing a lot better now. But when they were younger, it was really difficult to communicate with them because they didn't have the words to let me know their needs. So I had to be around all the time to observe them, um, and really get to know or try to anticipate their needs ahead of time. Um, it was my husband did the same. He's amazing, and the two of us just tried to figure out all our children needed, and just to make sure that they had their needs met. We wouldn't know what they would like to eat. Now they can let us know. Now that they're older, they can actually communicate with us. Mommy, I want pizza, or mommy, I want toast with peanut butter, or something. They can actually verbally say it. But previously, we just had to learn to be mind readers and just to be around for them whenever they needed us. And I think that's something that um, most parents, I think it was a conscious choice to have to be around for them and to try to build our entire worlds around them at that point when they were younger. I mean, we're still around for them. My husband and I still run our businesses from home. So we are just here. Anytime anyone needs us, we're here. Like I'm talking to you now, my husband has them. He's making their lunch and getting them ready for school. So we work as a team, and I'm very thankful that we live with my parents, and they have helped tremendously. They are my biggest support system, when it comes to my kids, so that I get a breather, my husband and I get a breather, and we can actually focus on work, as much as we can. But sometimes it's difficult. I mean, you have to get used to trying to get things done with constant interruption, constant distractions. But you get used to it. You get used to it, and just learn to take things one step at a time.
Thank you. You've actually brought us right back to what the topic is for today, which is empathy and parenting. I think we are beginning to have a feel around how your life revolves around being a parent to your two beautiful kids, right? I wanted to tell you that yesterday we were doing a show and my co-host Ashok introduced me to Satya Nadella. And this morning I was googling him because I was very inspired by something Ashok shared about how he was setting the business culture, right? And how he's very empathetic. And one thing he said, and I'm going to quote this to you because I think you are my own version of Satya Nadella from a parenting perspective. So he has, I think, three children, of which he talks about two. One who has a learning difficulty, if I remember correctly, and another child, who's a special needs. And one thing he said it was very interesting. He said they were talking about his empathy and how he became more empathetic because he acknowledges that he's very self-centered. That's not his words, but that's in the video. So I thought that was amazing how his focus moved from him to his child. And he said because his eldest kid don't know how to say things, so he said exactly what you said in his own words, which is, when your kids have no words, when people have no words, you need to observe, you need to anticipate, you basically have to put yourself in another person's shoe, which is what empathy is all about, right? But what he said from a business perspective, which actually hits me right at the core, is really he says you are in business you're looking at unmet, unarticulated needs of your customer, and it hit me. That's why empathy is so powerful, because when we feel people listen to us, we ourselves didn't know we had a need to be listened to. We only know it when we feel good, when we feel understood by the other person, because we didn't know how to articulate. If we knew we had a need, we would have spoken about it. So I wanted to share that with you, but you and now my new hero Satya Nadella, of Microsoft. But tell me a little bit more about what does it take for you to stay observant, right? And people have joined us. This is not just about parenting. I think what I loved about Pleasance is that she works much hard. She needs to work much harder than any one of us to empathize, in the sense that you can ask questions to your children and get the answers. You really need to perceive what they're feeling, what their needs are, look for their patterns, right? Look, I mean, I don't know what else you're doing, Pleasant. So tell us a little bit about, so when you talk about observing and anticipating needs of your children, tell us a little bit more. Maybe tell us a story of how you anticipate. In fact, I like the story that you mentioned about your daughter choosing the clothes for the wedding, right? So tell us about that. I read this on Facebook where, and that's why I quickly contacted you, because you were sharing about how you needed to prepare your daughter for her meltdowns so that she can be ready. So can you tell us that story and how you prepared your daughter? I think that would be a great empathy story for us to learn. Okay? Sorry to put you on the
Sure,
spot.
sure. I'll share a little bit more about what happened prior to that. So, a little more than a week ago was my cousin's wedding, and we had known about it a few months prior. Um, but for my children, my daughter specifically, they are still working on understanding the concept of time and dates and things like that. And so I use the clock and I use the calendar very often to illustrate, you know, how many days more to this event and everything. So after showing them that, hey, this is Uncle Joshua's wedding on this date, prior to the
Yeah.
wedding, had their outfits for the ceremony and for the dinner. So I just gave a brief, hey, heads up to my son and my daughter. My son settled very quickly, because he's not fussed about outfits and things like that. And he's quite good with suggestions, accepting suggestions. So that was settled very quickly. With my daughter, when I told her about the wedding, um, as usual, I mean, I know my daughter, okay? Some people may not really understand how an autistic person might react. But her first reaction was, no, no, I don't want to go. But I give her space. That is an initial reaction, which is normal for her. A couple of hours later, she comes and tells me, um, wedding, Elise wear black top and purple skirt. Elsa, coronation. So those were the key words that she provided me, that she wanted to wear her black top with the purple long skirt that I got for her recently, which she requested for because she wanted to look like Elsa, Queen Elsa from Frozen. For those of us who are not we're not familiar with the movie, that's what she wears, a black and purple gown for her coronation. And so I said, sure, that's great. And she runs off happily. And the next day, she comes and comments to me, wedding. And she reminds me again, she wants to wear the black and purple skirt. And I said, okay. Then I just quietly say, we are wearing two outfits. If you like, we will wear two outfits, one for the morning ceremony and one for the dinner. And I show her morning and evening, two outfits. And then I show her my outfits for the wedding, my two outfits for the wedding. And her reaction was to burst out in tears because she assumed that I was trying to force those outfits on her. And so I gave her a little bit of time. And then about a few minutes later, I just told her, no, this is not for you. This is what mommy is wearing. And I had prepared for this. I actually took photos of myself in those two dresses, and I showed her. I said, so this is for mommy, not for Elise. And I showed her a photo of her previously, of her wearing the black top and the purple skirt. And I said, this is what you're wearing to the wedding. And I said, do you want to wear something different for the morning and one for the evening? And that led to another meltdown. And so I said, you know what, it's okay. I give her some space. We let it go. A few days later, she came to me and said, wedding, we go now? So again, illustrating her lack of understanding for the concept of time. And I told her it's not now, and I had to show her on the calendar when the wedding was going to be. So we went back and forth about this quite a fair bit between, and so I would receive a lot of various and emotions from her,
Mm.
from happy to excited to being very strong-headed about what she wanted to wear. And then at the end of it, about 2 days before, she just said, I'm going to wear this. I'm wearing this black and purple. And I said, for the morning? And she said, yes. Then I said, and for the evening? And she said, yes, again. So that was decided. That was 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks worth of a discussion back and forth between me and her. And I know her well enough to give her the space
Mm, mm,
to process her thoughts and her emotions about something that I think most of us neurotypical people would not give two hoots about, planning an outfit for an event. But it was a big deal for her. And I've learned in the 15 years of being her mom, I understand her that way.
nice, nice. Oh, well, one is I must say no. I also have problems with outfits every Friday, and with my hairstyle every Friday because my hair doesn't look right every Friday just before I start. So I can only imagine. Actually, I cannot imagine what's happening with her because for the amount of effort you need to put in, right? And I just want to read out some comments before we try and understand what's happening in your head and how you think about it so that we can learn from you. Siobhan Hassan says, look for their patterns. Love that feeling and being instead of just thinking or being cognitive. Thank you, Siobhan. I told you this woman is fantastic. So, Siobhan is another fantastic person. So, what you seem to be doing is that you seem to have sort of accepted her pattern. She's going to have a meltdown and it's going to reduce. And, let me see what I can do to help her feel better, is what we are hearing from your story, right? And Sandeep says, beautiful Ray story. Hi, Tangam. Good to see you live now. And Sandeep says, children these days are quick learners, but we as parents need to be empathetic more than previous generation of our time. Okay, now we're going into generations conversations. Now, my question, what I'm very curious about, you, right, Pleasance, is that tell us a little bit about your transition, right? When your daughter Elise was first diagnosed and dealing with her meltdowns when you had less skills and less knowledge and less practice, and I'm sure you were overwhelmed.
Mm,
Two, the same child
yes.
over the 14 years, right? For you to be in this state of being prepared, actually staying calm, and anchored in her well being, anchored in her need for space, anchored in really being in her shoes in terms of her emotions and how she's perceiving it, right? So if you look at Pleasance then and if you look at Pleasance now, how did this Pleasant transition from the state of, and I'm assuming here that it would have been overwhelming and not easy to understand, feeling helpless, to feeling, I know my child, I can deal with this, and I will take it down one thing at a time. Well, tell me about your transition if you can. Pleasance. Oh, okay, we
I
got you back.
person back then. I was younger. I have always been an impatient person
Mm-hmm.
since I was young. Impatient and okay. Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah, better, better. You're lagging, but yeah, continue.
Yeah. So I was just saying that I was a very different person back then. Very patient. Okay. And I think maybe it's me getting older as well, but also understanding and giving grace to our children. They grow, they too um, get a little better. They improve, and communication improves. And so I think it was on both parts. Um, Between me and my children, together. We grew together. We made to hold space for each other. I mean, I tried to hold space for them as much as I could. There were days when I was not very good to them, and I wasn't very kind to myself either. Yeah, and I think every parent can really relate to that. We've had bad days, and I still have bad days, and I have bad moments, but my bad moments are a lot shorter now. I clip them as soon as I feel it coming. I try to clip it, nip it in the bud before it becomes full blown. So um, it's it's a lot about just being quiet sometimes and just looking looking outwards and also looking within as to what is it that I want relationship with my children. and knowing that at the end of the day, I just want them to be happy. I don't have high expectations from them. I don't need them to fulfill everything on this list of tasks that they are given. I don't need that. At the end of the day, um, if they're able to be themselves, be authentic, be happy, within, of course, a reasonable, I would say, boundaries of learning different, teaching them boundaries, as it would be compared to neurotypical children. But they're not that different. Every child, I believe, needs grace, needs space, and they need time to process their own thoughts. So we give them a lot of time to themselves, and they are excited to come to us when they've discovered things. So that's always fun. They will come to us, which is the most important thing, is to keep communication open between myself and my children, so that they will always come to me no matter what. If they have a need or if they just wanted to share that they feel is very exciting and important to them.
Nice. Thanks, Pleasant. Pleasant. So what I'm hearing is you are basically saying that you have co-created the space between you and your children, and I get it, and to keep the conversation open now. But I'm sure this didn't happen overnight. I want to go back to when you first started. Now, why? Because I think empathy is such an important skill, life skill in relationships, right? And
Yes.
we're on a day-to-day basis, we're talking about empathy, in a way where I can actually, if I really cannot empathize with somebody, I would probably say, I don't think I get you, but can you tell me more, right? Tell me more what's happening, just to try and figure out if I can put myself
Mm.
in their position, right? So now the reason, what I chose you to have this conversation about empathy is that there are some things that you would have actually done to try and be in your children's shoe when they couldn't articulate their need, and that is
Mm.
really the most challenging, right? Because you might ask the right question, you might want to listen, but they need to be able to articulate what they're thinking and feeling, right? So tell me, if you can recall, what are some things you did to help you listen better?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm going to say a short prayer so that your line is better, because we want to hear you.
Um, Sometimes it's as simple as sitting down with them while they are playing.
Hmm.
Okay, can you hear me now? Sorry, I know it's lagging on my
Yeah,
side.
you said.
Yeah. So sometimes it's just as simple as sitting down with, and while they are in their quiet moments doing, um, whether they're playing with their toys or something, and just sitting and just watching them and watching their reactions to whatever they're doing. And see if they're in their own world, doing something that they're happy with, what you see in them is peace
Hmm.
and happiness. So I learned to
Hmm.
recognize that in them. And then when they're
Hmm.
agitated and upset, you can tell from the tone of voice and the look on their faces that it would be they are about to have a meltdown, or they're having a difficult time, and that's when we know that we have to step in at some point, and mitigate that. um, it's also about going through this as a child myself, of feeling not understood a lot of times. um, I was told that I was overly emotional when I was a child, that I would freely talk back to the adults in my family because I wanted to be heard. And so when this experience with my children came around, it was like it came full circle. And I wanted to be the parent to my children, the parent, the adult in my life that I didn't have, or I didn't have access to. My parents tried their best, and but they were busy a lot, and so I was left on my own a lot as a child. And so I didn't have that sounding board, that support system in terms of what my children have today in me. So I think I've come full circle in that whole process. And so I look inward actually a lot of times as to what I need to do to be there for hits and misses. But I would say that I have more hits than I have misses. And I miss with my kids, I it's a learning point. It's someone some you gain some experience from that, and then you learn, okay, so next time I shouldn't say it this way, or next time I shouldn't use these words, or maybe I need to rephrase my questions or my comments a little better. So I think with everyone, you learn as you go, and you learn not to make the same mistakes too many times. And when something works, note it down and do that right thing again. That's all. I don't
Nice.
think there's any real um, yeah, there's no real formula, I would say, for getting it right with parenting. I mean, no, I don't think anyone is perfect. You just take it one step at a time, and most importantly, be kind to yourself as a parent, because you're trying your best.
Nice, nice. There was a lot of golden nuggets, my dear Pleasance, even though you say it was nothing. You know, you actually, so what I'm taking back from you is one is recognizing patterns, right? Patterns of their reaction. So you're observing for their reaction every time they feel understood. Because when they feel understood, you did say that they are happy. And you're looking for their frustration, and we often feel frustrated when we are not understood. So I think looking for that reaction in them, the emotional reaction in them that you can see physiologically is what I took back. And I think one of the other thing that you're saying which is very crucial in empathy, is understanding what is their need, what is their unarticulated need that they are trying to articulate, because they can't verbalize it, but they are probably telling you in terms of their behavior, in terms of their frustrations and their emotion, right? And what I also
Mhm.
loved, and this I resonate with you, right? Because you said you became what you didn't have,
Mhm.
right? So you took your own pain. If you remember, this is what we had interviewed you for years ago during International Women's Day. We call it pains to pearls, right? You took your own pain of not being understood, and you worked at understanding people, and in this case specifically your children, wanting to actually understand them, right? And of all of that, I think you probably, Siobhan will resonate with that. And I love what you said, is that as long as I'm doing my best, as long as my kids are doing my best, we'll take one step at a time, being kind to myself and the other person, which I think is fantastic, right? Siobhan says, thank you so much for sharing your experiences, Pleasance. It's important for parents in similar situation to know that they are not alone. How do you look after yourself? I'm curious, as it takes a toll on parents too.
Uh, I watch movies. I make sure to take time out at the end of the day in the evenings, when almost all is done. I sit down with my husband and we watch some movies and we watch TV, and we decompress. Our children will still come to us every now and then to tell us something, but that's our little time alone every day to decompress. I go for walks. I take time out to spend time with my friends, other adults, over coffee, over meals. I think it's important to remove myself from my everyday circle because that is my world, but I need to step out of that world every now and then just to fill myself, fill my void because I give so much. And as parents, we give so much. As mothers, we give so much of ourselves every day to our children. And I did not understand until really dropped my head that in order for me to give, I have to give to myself first. I have to make sure to fill my own tank first before I can give to others. And there will be days I do forget sometimes, and then and I feel myself being overwhelmed. That's when I know, okay, it's time to step back and take care of myself first.
Nice, nice. Thank you, thank you. I loved the part that you consciously step out of your world because you are overwhelmed in your own space and your own realities, right? And for you to have a feel of what's the world out there. And so I like the fact that you look at that as self-care by reaching out, beyond being with your husband and watching the movies, how you're stepping out to see how other people's world seem to be, right? And I also love the fact that you said fill our void. So tell us a little bit about how does void show up for you? How do you know you're feeling a void? When do you tell yourself, you know what, I need to fill myself up? Do you
Mm.
schedule it, or do you wait until it's like typically like filling your gas, right? I
It's
Yeah. So tell me.
I get it. Um, I think I try to schedule as much as I can, and scheduling and planning is important. But also understanding that it's things happen, life does get in the way, and sometimes you can't um, fulfill those scheduled tasks that you have for yourself. Things like meditate, go to the gym, go for a walk, things like that, that will help you decompress, um, schedule a facial session, go for a massage, things like that. If you can schedule into your calendar, because life goes on every day, just like you schedule in work, you schedule in what time you need to cook, meals, what time you need kids to school. It's important to set aside those times for ourselves to unwind and decompress from the stress, everyday stress and everything. But of course, there have been times that I have ignored, or rather just got overwhelmed by other tasks of work projects. And when I'm baking seasonally, maybe, like for Christmas time, I get very into my work, and then I have to kind of push all those scheduled tasks, like working for a little while. And it does build up, and it builds up. And for me, a very clear sign of when I need to decompress, to uh, I need to care for myself, is when I start snapping my husband, feel myself getting annoyed and irritated by things that I read online, social media. When I start feeling all those little things nipping at me on the inside, where it starts making me feel uncomfortable, that is a very clear sign that I have to step back, because that is of me at this point in my life. It's not normal for me to feel so much agitation. So I will have to force myself, and I will tell my husband. I say, hey, I'm feeling this and this, and I need time to myself. And that's when I will make efforts to take care of myself. It's as simple as maybe just getting your favorite food. Stepping outside for a cup of coffee by yourself. I do that sometimes. I sit in the cafe with my phone and just be on my own. And sometimes I leave the house earlier to pick up my children from school. I sit in there and I blast music. That's self-care to me. Whatever little bit of time I can get just to let it all down, let it all out, and just try to get all the yuckiness out of my system. I try my best to do that. I try.
Nice, thanks. Has there been times where you feel like, you know what, I don't want to understand, I don't want to empathize with people, not your children, but generally, because I find that generally you're an empath, right? And you give a lot. So have you reached a point ever in have you had moments where you're saying, you know what, this time I'm not going to understand you. It's I'm just going to take time out being an empath. Have you ever felt that? And if you have, tell us about it. Oh, we can't hear
Um,
you.
I say it,
Okay.
yeah, when I
Mm.
get frustrated, yes, but um, no, no, no. Hi,
I can hear you.
yes. Can you hear me now?
Can.
Okay, great. To answer your question, I wish I could turn it off, but for some reason, this part of me that's empathetic. Once it's turned on, I don't know how to turn it off. Even when I'm angry with someone, or really annoyed when someone cuts me off in traffic, in my head, I will just say, oh, that person is in a huge rush. He must be rushing somewhere. Maybe something important happened, or he really needs to use the toilet. I don't know, but it's a switch in my head. I can't turn it off.
Nice,
Um,
nice. Okay, that sounds
it's
more
funny
real.
that way.
As to you can't turn it on, turn it off. Sandeep had asked a question just now. He said, "Do you see any changes in motherhood pre and post pandemic time? What it could look like if it changed?" Yeah. So, is there a difference for you pre and post pandemic? If we can call post now.
Um, I would say that there are some differences, but not very huge for me. In terms of me being a mom, um, I had my kids with me all the time, right? Like everyone else. Because of their difficulty not being able to follow the Zoom classes, my husband and I basically took it upon ourselves to educate our children for two years, just using the syllabus that the school provided, but we were basically teaching them and guiding them through their work. Um, that was hard because I feel that as much patience as I have as a mom, when it comes to actually teaching them school subjects, it really tested my patience, and I had to really dig deep. I had to previously to really find the patience and to be and try to work through the challenges with my kids. But there were days that were really bad days. Um, Now that they are back in school, I feel I can breathe a little bit more, and with that, I'm very thankful and grateful to their teachers. They're at a really wonderful school, and the teachers are amazing. So that part was the biggest challenge, um,
Nice.
and
Yeah,
of
like what
course
you
having everyone at home.
was it useful or not useful
Yeah,
having
and
everybody? Sorry.
yeah, it was good and bad at the same time.
Okay. It's a
It was
package
good
deal.
because then, yeah, yeah, it is. And I think everyone went through the same thing with having everyone at home. You have to navigate and learn to how to keep to your own space and not step on someone else's space. You still wanted to maintain some privacy, but at the same time, I read and I was comforted to know that everyone was home and safe at that time. It made a lot out of me that time period because my anxiety was sky high. But so having everyone at home was a comforting feeling. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, we had moments of just annoyance and irritation with each other, just like everyone.
Nice. Uh, Last question. I'm not sure how you'll take this question, but I'm interested to hear your answer because I think it's a difficult question. Sandeep is asking, how do you inculcate local culture and spirituality with children?
Uh, Sorry, could you repeat that question again? Oh, okay, I
How
see it
do
now.
you
How do you
local
incorporate
culture
local culture?
and
Ah,
spirituality?
um, okay. That is a very challenging question to answer. In terms of local culture, um, we try to involve them in as many festivals as we can. Different cultures. And it helps with the schools. The kindergartens actually do help to try to introduce the children to different cultures. In fact, within Malaysia itself, I make sure that in August we put up the Malaysian flag, for Independence Day and all the way through September for Malaysia Day as well. Um, it's a little. I'm still not very sure how year. I mean, we have different our specific practices like offering tea to our elders, and receiving ang paos and things like that. I'm only recently noticing, like within the past maybe a year or two, that my children actually comprehend a little bit more of what these bits and pieces of our culture is like. When during the Mid Autumn Festival, most children will be out there carrying their lanterns, and walking outside. My children have no interest in any of that. So as much as I try to expose them to these different celebrations, the different parts of our culture, it's um, I think we just let it be, and they join in when they want to, and if not, it's okay. We just continue to live our lives and celebrate with our friends and just have them observe us. And I mean, I'm okay with that.
Thank you, Pleasance. That was a difficult question. I'm glad I didn't have to answer the question, but thank
Sorry,
you, Sandeep,
Sandy.
for
I hope I
yeah,
was able to answer that.
yeah. So my well, I think it's the last question, and I hope the internet will be kinder to us or to you. How tell us how you experience empathy with your challenges, right? Especially when you're out with your children, right? Because one of those things that we spoke about, sometimes people think pity is being empathetic, right? So we can try and differentiate it, but really tell us a story, or give us an example of how do you uh, on the receiving end, how do you receive, how do you feel, how do people show up and treat you when and that makes you feel understood? How does empathy show up for you at the receiving end? Pleasance. Yes, we
Okay.
got you.
Um, I don't expect. Okay, sorry,
So
lagging
I
here.
tell you what, I'll make it easier for you,
Like I was
Pleasance. Hold
saying,
on.
I don't
Pleasance,
expect
hold on.
strangers to understand.
Pleasance. Okay.
Can you hear me
Tell
now?
me
Yes,
when, yeah, I
yes,
can. When you experience empathy, so I'm sure you have some friends who truly understand your needs.
yes, yes.
Give us an example how that comes true for you when you are on the receiving end.
Um, I have very good examples of when my friends are very empathetic towards me, and we have get-togethers every now and then, and since the pandemic, actually even before, we would have the get-togethers at friends' homes, and my friends who understand that my children have different needs. Like my daughter, she will want to go to a quiet space for herself because being autistic, I mean, that she can't really handle the crowds as much, the noise and everything. She just wants to be on her own. And so I have friends who are so kind and let us know that, before we even arrive at their home, they will say, "Hey, don't worry, I've already cleared a room for Elise. She can spend time in this room here. It's quiet, and you can still watch her. She's in there, and it's okay if she stays in there. Some even offer their own bedrooms, so that she can have a safe space to be in there and they know that my kids only eat certain foods, and so they will think about preparing those foods for them. You know, Darius loves pizza. He survived entirely on pizza, all meals. And so my friends buy pizza for him for his birthday. They will make have a get together at their home. They would, out of no dream, or a treat would appear. Grab would just ring the bell, and then something magically would appear in my home. A treat for me. Uh, you know, I mean, things like that. I'm very blessed. Seriously, I'm very blessed because I have a really, really amazing group of friends who who always think of me,
Nice.
and it uh, makes things a lot easier, makes life a lot easier, a lot better for me.
Nice. Thank you, Pleasance. You only seem to have a positive side to life. I will try and emulate that. Um, before we finish, we are almost at the end, right? Have you ever wondered if it's not um, uh, having these two children who require so much of empathy actually from your side, right? If if it's not for your kids, what sort of an empathetic person have you ever thought you would be? Pleasant.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would be the same person. I I'm not sure I would be the same person now if it weren't for my two kids. Because I think it takes specific experiences, specific circumstances sometimes to, you know what I mean, kickstart that self
Yeah.
awareness.
Mm.
If I'm saying it right, but I feel like everything in my life has set me up, has prepared me for the person I am today, for everything that I am going through right now.
Thank you, Pleasant. Before we
So
say
I
goodbye, is
don't
there
know
anything?
what kind of a person I would be.
That's fine.
Mhm.
We will never know what the road that we never took will look like, isn't it? Because we never took it. Anyway, so and I think what's really my
Yeah.
big takeaway from you is that I think whatever that's thrown your way, you are very determined to give your best, and that's why you are who you are, right? And so before we say goodbye, is there anything else you'd like to tell the audience before we say goodbye?
Um, from one parent to another, from one human being to another, I think um, let's give each other more grace and compassion, and the give each other benefit of the doubt before we jump into judge or make a or determine a thought or an opinion in our minds. I think just let's just all be kinder to each other. And this world could really use a lot more kindness.
Oh, thank you very much, Pleasance. Thank you, everybody who has joined us. So, as we
Thank you,
say,
Mala.
we'll catch up again for another coffee and some really good photographs. So, as we say goodbye to Pleasance, I want to just say thank you to Sandeep, who has participated, and commented. Thank you, Sandeep. Yes, and thank you, Gerald. Thank you, Siobhan. And have I missed out anybody? Tangam, who has joined us just now, Ivana Palan, who has joined us. So thank you for joining us. I hope you've learned one or two things, or at least been inspired by Pleasance, as she always inspires me. We apologize; the line was a little bit cranky today. So we do hope that when the recording comes on, it would be clearer. I will share it again, the YouTube recording, after I find it's clear. So thanks for joining us. Please subscribe to our YouTube, and we are on Spotify. Please find us on Being Whole, Being Me. We are at series 75 and 25 to go. Till I meet you next week. Next week, we are starting a new month, the month of October, the month of mental health. So we have lined up speakers who are going to create awareness on mental health. So I hope you will book your time 12 to 1 to join us another week, another Friday, same time, same place, different speaker, different inspiration. With that, till I meet you, stay safe, stay wonderful, and be happy, as Pleasance says. Bye.